So this is n=4 in our N+1 days of MvvmCross, and you've already gone through some basic samples where we put together a page on 4 different platforms that did some data binding. And we did it just not data binding just to strings, but we also did it for a, what did we do it for? Oh, we did it for a slider, for a double. And then we've done some lists, and we've also done a custom list cell, table cell on iOS. And this time I just thought I'd like to show you some value converters. Now, not everybody agrees value converters are good. In fact, I think Laurent from MvvmCross has said value converters are evil. However, I use value converters a lot, and I find them really useful. And I find them useful when you have a field in the view model, and you want to display it multiple ways in the view. Or if you want to, for example, convert it from a string length to a valid string length, or something like that, and you can do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through very quickly the kind of sample we've already gone through, just to build up the project. So I'm not going to talk this through because there's plenty of examples already, but hopefully you'll get the idea of what I'm doing. So I'm just going to create this in a space called N04, and this is value converters. And this is going to be called value.core. So as I say, I'm not going to talk this through in detail. Just going to have to remember how I've done this in previous ones, and remember the steps that I've gone through. But I will go from scratch each time, just so you can see it's straightforward to do. It's exactly what you're expecting. NuGet, install hot tuner, done, ready to do, rename the space, the namespace, in the view model, rename the namespace. Right, so we've got to our basic level, and what I'd like to do is I'd just like to give in here a really simple property, and we're just going to have the one property. And it's going to be called text. No, let's not call it text because that'll confuse people. Let me call it foo, the international word to use when you don't know what word to use. So that's it. That's our entire view model and application. That should build up. Done. Right, I'm going to start with Android. I hope that I've still got an emulator running. And for Android, what we'd like to do is we'll have to add a UI called value.droid. And we'll just quickly add this in, go through the same steps as we always go through. So we add the reference to the core, we add the NuGet packages for MvvmCross, hot tuner starter pack, done, and then we delete the to do folder because I know what I'm doing. We delete the activity because that was there, and then we just change some namespaces over. And if you can't follow this, then just by all means go back to the earlier tutorials where we had this going, no problems, and you'll follow it through. Right, so at this stage we are almost ready to actually show something on screen. So let's just change this namespace, value.droid. And then let's, I think we use foo as our internationally acceptable thing. So we're going to have a text view, and above that we're going to have an edit text. And that's got two-way binding for foo. So what we should now be able to see is if we debug, start new instance, and I should really get it to prompt the device, so I need to, I can't do anything while it's building. There, select device, select it. And then hopefully what we'll see is the old kittens on the screen. We're not showing that today. What we're showing is this guy. And when we run it up, you get this first view model. And if we put text in here like no keyboard support, so it's called foo, so we'll put bar, then you can see that in this text field you get the text reflected. So what we'd like to do is take this basic sample that's working, and we would like to add some value converters to it. So we're going to get back to the core because we would like to have portable value converters. And so what we'll do is we will add a new folder and we'll call it converters. There's no reason you have to do this naming, but that's, it's a convenient place to put it. And within there, we're going to add a value converter. So let's add a new class. We'll just accept class 1. And for those of you who don't know what value converter looks like, I'll start one just from scratch to start with. So public class 1 iValueConverter. No, you can't have iValueConverter. MvvmCross. The reason you can't have iValueConverter is because Microsoft have broken iValueConverter. They put it into 2 separate namespaces in Windows 8 and Windows RT in the store apps, and they put it in a separate namespace to the one in Windows Phone and in Silverlight and WPF. So now it's no longer portable. In fact, it hasn't even got the same API the way they've done it. So we've got our own one which starts with IMVX value converter, and if we import it like that, then that's the way we can do it. And I'll just show you what the raw API is for IMVX. What it is it's got 2 methods, and I hope you can see these. The first one is convert. This is called when you're going from the view model to the view, and it takes object and object, so it's pretty raw in terms of what it converts. And it's just like if you've got a string, then maybe it will convert it from a string to a string length or something. The second one you've got is convert back, and this is used a lot less frequently, and it's used when you're going from the view to the view model. So if you were, for example, you had some kind of formatted text field, and you wanted to go from that formatted text field back to a raw text in the view model, then you could do that using convert back. Now that's pretty, verbose and horrible. It's not that bad. But what I've done within MvvmCross is I've made it a bit simpler. And we actually have an MVX value converter helper class, and you can give it a type. So if you know that in your view model that you want to have a string in your view model, and you want to cast that to something else in the view, then you can use this guy. So if you want to go from a string to a string, you can do that. And let's do this as let's go from string to an int. That sounds good to me. And let's do this first one as a length value converter. It's good to name these things either converter or value converter. And in fact, let's be really verbose and call it a string length value converter. And what you'll see is that we need to override something in here. So what we need to override is the convert method. And what we're going to override is we're going to say, well, if we get a string in, so what we're going to do is what we'll do first of all is make sure it's not null. We're just going to set it to either null or not null, will be fine. And what we're going to return is we're going to return value.length as a result. Now that's our first value converter. Now in order to use that, all we have to do is once we've built this guy up, let me just change the class name so that it's matches over here. So all I've done is change the class name. Once we've done that, we should be able to build core again. And then what we should be able to do in our UI project in first view is we should simply, where we have this binding for edit text, which obviously we're not going to change because that one we want to kind of keep. Where we've got this one for the text view, what I'm going to do is where we've got the binding, and the binding at the moment says the binding text in the text view to foo in the view model, we're going to apply a converter. So what we do is we do converter equals, and then we give the name of the converter. Now the name of this converter is string length. And the way that that's reached is because our class name is string length value converter, and all it's doing is saying, right, well, I've got a string length value converter, what name shall I give it? And it just removes the value converter from the end. So let's just see if that builds and runs for us and see what the effect is. So we deploy again. I really should set that up to be the default target. And hopefully in our emulator, it loads, and you can see we've got a 0, and as we type things in here, you can see that what we get is we get the length of the string. So test string, it does the length. And so that's a very first value converter for us. And obviously you could, if you want to, have multiple fields. So let's just do that. So you could, for example, have text view, and you could have it with the text foo and without the string length, and then that will show both things. So let me just quickly run that up. Just see if I can set this as the default target. And then where is the Android UI? Doesn't seem to want to let me set that as the default target at the moment, which is a shame. Right, so what I'll do is I'll just keep running it up the same way. There is a way to set that, but it just doesn't want to let me at the moment. But we'll run it up, and now you should see we have the two fields. So we got it there, and when we do that, so you've got two things bound to the same. We've got two things bound to the same string. Okay, that was all very straightforward and works reasonably well. So let's now consider what other value converters we could put on there. We could, for example, as well as this string length value converter, we could have added another one. So let's just do that. Add new class. You could easily add, for example, a string reverse value converter. So let's do that. And again, we need to make it public. You know, most things should really be public, in my opinion, in your class libraries. And again, we're just going to inherit from MvvmCross value converter. And this time we're going to go from a string to a string. So we're just going to reverse the string. So what we're going to do is override again, and we want to override that convert. And you can see it gives us the right types here in the prototype for the function. And what we're going to do is, again, we're just going to make sure that it's not a null string. There are times when it's useful to have a null string, but not for our particular examples. And then there are various ways you can reverse a string, but what I'll do is I'll just do it very quickly using string builder. String builder equals new string builder, and the length of it is going to be value.length. And all I want to do is for var I, the easy way is probably to do is for an array of chars. For I equals value.length -1, I is greater than or equals 0, I minus string builder.append, and this is going to be value I. And then all we're going to do is return string builder.toString. So I hope that wasn't too painful in terms of string reverse for you. And now what you should get in here is we should get a string builder. And when we go down to our first view, we've already got this text view at the top, which is the main guy. What we can do is for the second one, we can add a converter equals string length, string reverse, sorry. And this should just get automatically picked up for us, and we should be able to run it. So let's see, debug start new, choose the emulator again, let it run up. And what we should see, hopefully, is that if we start typing in here, if we start typing red, then we get the length still and we get the reverse. Now, just to show you what you can do as well with two-way, is if we had decided to make this a two-way value converter, so if we had overridden convert back as well, then let's just do this as a common method. What I'm going to do is Control R, M, and I'm going to just make it into a method. So this is going to be just a reverse method. Then we're going to use that for both of our methods. So this is for converting back and for converting forwards. Then what we should be able to do is we should be able to convert in both directions. And so when we edit one, oops, yeah, I've done this the wrong way around. Sorry about that. When we edit, so what I needed to do was change this guy. And this is going to be return reverse value. So now let's just explain what I've just done. All I've done is I've taken that string reverse, and as well as now having convert, I've also got the reverse direction of convert back. So all it's going to do is it's going to take one of the strings and convert it back when you edit it. So what I'll do, just to show you what's happening, is back in first view, I'm going to add a couple more text views. So I'm just going to have one more, I guess. And this is just going to show foo. And in the edit text now, I'm going to use string reverse. You may not be able to follow this at the moment. You may be like, oh, what's going on? I don't understand. But let me just really try to help. So if I comment out everything else in this file, obviously using XML commenting, then what should happen is you should now be able to see that we've now just got this edit text, which has got string reverse on it, and then we've got a text view, which is going to show the actual contents of the field within the view model. So when we run this guy out, then what we should see is that as we run it up, what's going to be displayed on the screen on the emulator is the reversed string in the edit text, and what's actually stored in the view model is the reverse. Yeah. And obviously all those other things, the things we just commented out, they can still work if we just put them back in. So hopefully we should be able to see that now when we run this up. It just works, hopefully. Again, we have to choose emulator. Let's run it up. And when it runs, you can see we've got this guy here. If we start typing red in there, then what you can see is we've got underneath here, we've got the actual thing that's stored in the view model, the DER, got the length of the actual thing that's stored in the view model, and we've got the reverse of the thing that's stored in the view model. So all of those value converters just work together. It's not slow, it's not hideous, but if you ever do get lists with really complicated value converters, then maybe it will be. But you know, in terms of manipulating what's on the screen, it's pretty good. If you wanted, instead of that, if you were interested in having some sort of threshold value or something, let's add yet another value converter. Yeah, the message I'm trying to give you here is the value converters are very easy to create. So this is going to be special value converter. And what special value converter is going to do is, again, we're going to create a public class. Let me just zoom in a bit so you can see what's going on. We're going to create a public class. It's going to inherit from MvvmCross value converter. And what I'd like it to do is I would like it to be a one-way value converter. I'll just inherit. What I'd like it to do is I'd like it to convert to an enum called special. And special, let's give it the values of, I can't use foobar again. Let's give it special values of Windows Phone, Android, and iOS. Yeah, and so those are yeah, no, that's fine. I don't mind about the warnings in there. And so what our value converter is going to be is it's going to be from the string to the special. And all we're going to do is we're going to do override the convert method again. And in the convert method, what we're going to do is, again, we'll just make sure the value isn't null. Quite often you need to do this. Sometimes you don't. It's just whether what you like to use for null or not. And what we're going to do is we're going to just test the length. So if value.length is less than 3, then we will return special.iOS. If value.length is less than 6, we'll return special.Windows Phone. Otherwise, we'll return special.Android. Yeah, so it's just a made up, if you like, value converter. And what we'll do is we'll go to the first view, having done that, and this last one, instead of string reverse, we'll do converter equals special. And when we run it up, what we should see is that we're not using strings anymore. We're now using this enum, and we should be able to get the enum value out into the UI. And that's quite useful if you ever need to do binding to perhaps an alarm threshold or anything like that, because you can set it and you can share these things. So somewhere here is my emulator. I pull up my emulator. Hopefully it's running. No, it says deploy succeeded. Did I choose debug? I guess I didn't. Try that again. Debug, start new, choose the emulator. Hopefully it's going to go off, package the application, copy across, synchronize assemblies, run it up. And now what we should see, hopefully, or have I written a bug? Wait, let's see, is it stuck on? No, it's waiting for the debugger. I don't know why it's waiting for the debugger. It seems to have a slight problem there. Let me try again. Force close that one. Deploy succeeded. Something's going on in my connection to the debugger. Let me force close that and close it down. Maybe I can't do it, so let me try starting a new one. So I have to choose my emulator image. The emulator I want is the Android, is the Intel one. So it'll spin up, it'll take half a minute to do so, or maybe less. Tick-tock, tick-tock. But hopefully, apart from this debugger issue that I've got at the moment, hopefully you've seen that it's reasonably straightforward to just keep adding new value converters, and you can use quite a lot of them, and it will help you build up your UI from your basic strings. So yeah, Android's up and running. So let me unlock it. And is this going to refresh or is it going to get upset? Okay, I'll just cancel that and I'll do it again, and this time it will pick it up. No, it looks like I may have lost ADB. So when you get a problem like this, there are a few ways you can get around it. The way I generally do is I close down Visual Studio. You may also need to go to ADB to do this. And then I open a new Visual Studio, and in the new Visual Studio I just quickly open up and I open up the solution that I was working in. Disasters of live recording. So we do that. And what we should get is we should get this guy back, and let's just see if this is going to work for me, or if maybe we'll need to do a full reboot, which would be annoying. Build started. Deploy started. So now it's got the emulator. We package the application, we deploy it to the device, and this time it's running. So now it's loaded it. You can see it's got that enum value of iOS. So what we do is we now start typing red. As soon as we get to 3, we've got Windows Phone, and I think was it 5 or 7, you get to Android. So you can see all of those things there. We've got a reverse on this guy occurring, we've got this guy as the plane, we've got the length, and we've got the special. And you can do with anything. Okay? So that's value converters in a real nutshell for Android. So let me just show the same thing working on iOS. And I'll have to remember my own syntax for doing this, but it's cool. So what we're going to do is add a new project, and this time we're going to go to iOS, and we're going to go to a Windows Phone project and Hello World. And again, I'm going to go quite quickly. So if you don't follow this, then you need to go back to the earlier N+1s. But here's a value.touch, and it creates the value.touch, and we go through the same steps as we've always gone through. So we add a reference to the core project, and then we add the NuGet packages for MvvmCross. So I need to find MvvmCross and search. Whoops, Cruise. Too many S's. The MvvmCross and search. We add Hot Tuner. We hit close. And then, well, I will use that. So let's just fix up these namespaces. So it's value.touch, value.core. The app delegate we have a copy of here, which I'm just going to use. It needs to have value in it, so I'll do that. So you can see it's a really quick fix up to get this working. And then once we've done that, what we're going to do is we're going to add a view. So we add the views folder, and in the views folder we're going to add a view. And this will be much easier now that you've seen one thing working on the map. It'll be a lot easier using the zib editor. But we'll struggle on. It's all right. We can do this. So we're going to add a UI view controller. And this UI view controller is going to be called first view. And within the first view, you'll see the UI view universal control. And I don't like it being red, so I'm going to change it to white. And within the first view, we're going to get rid of these things that we don't really want. And we're also going to change it from a UI view controller to an MVX view controller. Yeah. And then the very first thing we're going to do is we're just going to set it up with the edit text. So to do that, we create a var text field equals new UI text field. And so this text field we're going to give to the rectangle at the top. So it's going to be a rectangle F, and we're going to do, let's just give it a little indent, 10, 10, and it'll be 300, and we'll give it a height of 40. Yeah, and we're going to add that to our view as a child. So we've got that, and then we'd like to have a label underneath. New UI text, so this is a new UI label. And again, we'll just give it a size. So this will be a 10, and this is going to be a 50, and a 300, and a 40. So that's the size of this guy. And we'll add that to our display as well. So you can see that's those things set up. Then we just need to add some binding. So what we'll do is we'll do this, dot create binding set. And the binding set, so we need to do var set equals. This create binding set is going to go from the first view to the first view model. and we'll resolve those things just using resharper and alt enter. If you don't have resharper, tough luck. It's well worth the money, and you're just wasting your own time not having it. There's my advert for resharper, who are sponsors of the project, and I'd buy it if they weren't sponsors of the project. So we have, the first thing we're going to bind is text field, and we're just going to bind that to the view model, and we're binding it to the view model on vm.foo. And the second thing we're going to bind is the label, and again we're going to bind the label to the view model, and we're binding that on foo as well, and then we call set.apply to finish it off. So we should, hopefully, if we set this as the startup project, we've got those annoying fields to set as well. So if we go to iOS application and we call this value, and it's com.serious.value, and we call it vision1, then if we're lucky and we've got a following wind, we should be able to set that as the startup. We should be able to pick iPhone simulator. We should be able to pick the Retina simulator, and then we should be able to deploy it. So if we do that, now I'm not using the team viewer anymore. I'm testing out a tight VNC viewer and the integrated VNC, and so I'm seeing whether or not I can get that working. Now let's just see. So what I'm doing is I'm running it up. This is just a remote view onto my Mac, and you can see it runs up and it's got an empty screen, but I do know that at the top here I've got this text field, and if I start typing, then you can see, this is our normal data bind. So we're going to get rid of that, and what we'd like to do is add some converters to it. So back in first view, the first converter that we were looking at was just on this label, was we'd like to apply a conversion, and the name of the converter we'd like to use is string length. So exactly as we had in Droid, which if you remember, in Droid we had this field, converter equals string length. Here in this Fluent style, which I hope you can see, all we're doing is we're saying with conversion and string length. So let's just run that up now. I've added string length and see if it works. So that's running over on here, over on my type VNC box. So hopefully it's going to start my Mac. Hopefully. It's this one that I'm waiting to start. It starts up. And you can see string length is there straight away. And if I start typing, you can see that string length is done. So no difficulty there. If we exit that and we add in a few more fields, then let's just do it. Let's get to the final thing. So in our final view, we had, okay, so our first text view is just going to be straight. Our edit text is going to have string reverse applied. Our converter is going to have string length, and then we're going to have a special for the last. So we need a label 1, a label 2, and a label 3. Let's just do this. And those are going to be at 50, 90, and 130, just to give them 40 height each. And then what we'd like to do is we said, just set them all up. We said that we would like the first edit text, so back in our AXML, the edit text is this guy at the top. We said we'd like it to have string reverse, so we're going to add string reverse to this guy. So you can see string reverse is there. The first label, this guy has no converter, so that's this label, has no converter. The second label has string length, so that's this one. And the final label, or text view, or UI label, has special applied. So you can see that's how it looks, and when it runs up, let's give it a go, debug, start new instance, and we look over on our Mac desktop, and hopefully over on our Mac desktop, we should see that this will run up, just talking across the network. Obviously at the same time as I'm recording this. Oh, I've got a message. Hopefully that's nothing too sensitive. Thanks, Soft Savage, who's also known as Dominic. And what we should see here is that if I start typing, then all of our value converters work exactly the same as they worked on Android. So that's portable code, exactly in the same PCL library, used across from Android to iOS, all done in the first bit of this demo. Right, so now we've done Android and iOS, let's just take a look at the Windows twins. And there are more than 2 Windows twins as well. There's obviously WPF, but I'm not really covering that in this series. And so what we need to do is, again, I'm going to go really quickly, but if we start with, let's start with Windows Store, it will be as good as any. And this is going to be value.store. And what we have to do is we import value.store. We add a reference to the core project. All of this I'm going as quickly as I can because you've seen it several times before. You don't need to see me adding MvvmCross from NuGet yet again. So we'll just take that. Oh, there's even more for that. Let me add MvvmCross. So we install Hot Tuner, away it goes. And then when we've done that, what we need to do is we delete main page because we don't really like it. We'll just fix up these namespaces to value. And then what we do is we know we've got a couple of snippets for, we've got a block of snippet code here to go into our app.xaml.cs, so we do that. Somewhere here there's this block, and we're just going to replace it. And at that point we kind of have half a working app, which is good. All we want to do is we want to add the views folder, so we add the views folder. And then we add our first view, so we're going to add our first view. It's going to be a basic page. It's going to be called first view because we use naming conventions to find the first view from the first view model. So we add that, and that adds in some common files. And in the common files we find layout aware page, and we go, I don't want you to be a page, I want you to be an MVX store page. And we hit allow resharper to find that for us. And then there's one other block in here, which is this process lifetime management. And we just rip a chunk of code out of there. So rip away, there goes that chunk. And then finally, once we've done that, we can start building our view. So let me just build it so that the designer shows for you. Let me edit these things so you can see the XAML. Right, so hopefully this now builds. And you can see a design view for it if you'd like. And what I'll do is I'm just going to add in a stack panel here. So stack panel. And that's going to go into grid.row equals 1. And what we do is we're going to put in here the text blocks and the edit text and text boxes that we need to display. So text box number 1 is text equals, and we're going to bind to foo. I must find a better example of foo, but it served my purpose. And the thing you have to remember with store apps and with XAML in general is you have to include mode equals two-way. Don't blame me, it wasn't my decision. And then what we also do is font size equals, for this we'll just put it as something fairly big like 64 so you can see it on screen. And then we'll do the same thing for a second one, but this second one is going to be text block rather than text box. Oops, I can type it, be good. And this you can't do two-way binding on. But that will get us our general, our general representation. So let's just see if that runs up. Debug start new. And now hopefully we should be able to run this in the store. And if we start typing in here, life, then when we tab away, you'll see that we get our value converter kicking in. We don't get it as we type live, and that's just that's just the way it works. There are workarounds to make it happen live, but I didn't want to include those in this demo. If you want to find out what they are, take a look at things like coding for fun, which kind of has an attached property which will update these things as you type. So that's the basic demo. But we want to use value converters because that's what we're about here. So it's going to use value converters. As I said, we've got built-in value converters in the WinRT runtime, and we've got them in the Silverlight runtime. So what we have to do is we have to map from the MVX ones, from the MvvmCross value converters, to these native ones. And I'm afraid it's a bit manual and a bit of a faff. We will try and look at better ways of doing it, but you do it once and you forget about it, so it's all right. So what we do is we create a folder, and we just call it, for the sake of anything, we call it native converters. And in there we create some classes, so we just add some classes. And I'll just call this, so I'll just do everything in one file and call it converters. And what we need to do is we need to create a local copy of all those value converters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a native string length value converter. Gosh, these names get long. And this is going to be an MVX native value converter, which will resolve using ReSharper. And the native value converter is going to be based on our string length value converter, which we've got in our main project. Yeah, and that's it. That's all you have to do to convert it. But I'm going to do that for each of our things. So we've got a string length, we've got a string reverse value converter. Let's just do that, string reverse. And we then also, what was the last one, was a special. So native special value converter. And so those are our 3 value converters. And then what we need to do, yet again, another little quirk you have to go through, is we have to get those into XAML. So the way I generally do this is using the resource dictionary and the application resources. And what I generally do is I go here and I go, right, what I'd like is I'd like a native string length value converter. And you can see that ReSharper is helping me out there. And what I do is I give it a name, a key of something a bit shorter than that, so just string length, so it matches what's in the XAML, in the AXML, and in the iOS examples. And then I'd like another one which is called string reverse. And I'd like another one which is called, oops, let me just do this, string reverse. Yeah, got that right. And then another one which is special. And obviously I've got to then match those names across to these keys. And it's complaining at the moment just because I haven't built the project, but if I build it, hopefully those complaints should go away. So now there's no underlining, it's fine. And so now in first view what I can do is I can actually use those guys. So if I find this text block that I was doing before, then let's just do it. So what we said we're going to do, and I'm just going to zoom right to the punchline as it were, is we're going to use converter, and again there's a lot of curly braces and horrible syntax here. And so the first one, it was the string reverse converter. And then what we'd like is we'd like a couple more here, and what these ones will be, just to match the other examples we have, is this is a static resource which is a string length converter. And then this is a foo. No, this is a special. And when we run this up, we should see that we get exactly the same UI as we got for Android, and exactly the same UI as we got for iOS. So when we run this up, if we type life, then what we should see is we get elif for Windows Phone. So that's the Windows Store completed using exactly the same value converters. It was a bit nastier because there are these wrappers codes, and it was a bit nastier because we had to include it in the app.xaml. You can, instead of this block here, you can use a resource dictionary and import it as a whole file, but it's still the same sort of code that you have to do. Very quickly I'll do Windows Phone as well, just to complete the set. But Windows Phone you'll discover is exactly the same type of app. So again, I'll do Windows Phone, I'll do value.phone, I'll choose Windows Phone 7, no reason for that other than my emulators fight. I will add a reference to our core project, which is Solution Core. I will add the NuGet package for MvvmCross. So again, you should be very familiar with this by now, if you've watched the earlier installs. And then what we'll do is we'll delete to do, because I think I know what I'm doing. So let me not delete it just in case I need it in a moment. Let's go here and let's fix up some namespaces. Value and value. And then let's get rid of the main page because it'll just sit there looking strange. And what I think I need to do in this guy is I need to create a setup. So I do. Oops. Var setup. Just new setup. And this is going to take root frame. And then we call setup.initialize. And that's fine, that's what it's got. And then what we need to do is this code in application launching, and for that I will just copy it across because it's 5 lines that I don't need to commit to memory. So we copy that across, here's application launching, and we just replace it. So it's just standard code, nothing exciting. Then we finally get onto our views, so we add a new folder called views. And we add to that folder a class, and that class is going to be a portrait page. I'm going to call it first view. Hopefully you can see everything's happening here and you understand it. And instead of a phone application page, we want MVX phone page. So we do that. And instead of it in the top of the XAML, we want an MVX phone page, and it says do that. So we do that. And now we've got a view that will work. And for XAML, all I'm going to do this time is I'm going to go back to the store app. Hopefully I've got it. And I'm actually going to cut and paste that entire block of stack panel across. Yeah. And I'm going to use that instead of my content pane. So I'm just reusing exactly the same XML, and it's complaining about the these converters. So what I'm going to do is, because we're in, not that interested in what's going on here with my guest, I'm also going to copy across these native converters. So let's do that. So I'm going to go to the store project where these native converters are. I'm going to go to the phone project. I'm going to add a folder. That is the converters, or native converters, I think we called it last time, so let's do it that way. Native converters. In here I'll create a class, just an empty class, whatever name. I called it converters last time as a file name. And in here I will ignore the converters, I'll just put these guys in. And what we should be able to do is we should be able to use ReSharper to import those guys. And you can see they're imported. And then the final thing we have to do is in app.xaml, I need to import exactly as I had in the Windows Store app. I have to import these guys. So here's the application resources block for app.xaml. I paste them in. ReSharper does some magic for me. It underlines them because it's complaining, but if I build, then those complaints should go away. Did it build? Not actually telling me whether it built or not, which isn't very friendly of it. Let me just see, does it build? I need to see a build success. Yes, so it's saying build succeeded, so it has built. It's still underlining those things, I'm not sure why, it shouldn't be anymore. Let me just close it and then open it again and see if, okay, it's still saying they don't exist. We'll find out in a minute whether or not it's lying to me or whether it's telling the truth. So the very last thing I want to do is, because I want to run it into the old emulator, I'll set it here. And then I should hopefully be able to run this up, and hopefully, unless I've messed up, we should actually see this working. So there's an emulator there, it's still got some kittens very briefly on the screen, and you can see that something's running. And then if I start typing here and I tab away, you can see that it's got the string reverse applied to this guy, it's got the normal there, it's got the length there, and it's got our special there. And if I add a few more characters, then we should see it all updates. So I went really quickly for Windows Phone and Windows Store there, but I think if you are a XAML developer already, you'll have followed it. But I hope that what you've seen, I hope that what you've followed, is that we have got our value converter, and we've got it working in iOS. We've got all these different ones, and it was relatively straightforward to add it. We added it to the PCL and then it just came across. We have got our value converter running in Android. I think I called the app your app name, so it might be quite hard to find. Let's just see. No, it's not that one. Let me just see if I can find it. Okay, so I won't know where it is on the menu, which is a bit of a shame. It's one of these your app names at the bottom, and it could be any of them. No, I'm never going to find it. So we did get it running in Android. Maybe I should show you again, just to remind you. It was running in Android exactly the same. And too many projects named exactly the same thing. So we did have it running in Android. Famous last words. And we also, used exactly the same logic. So if it was more complicated than the string reverse, we could have reused that across multiple platforms. So there you go. It's running in Android as well. We had it running in iOS. We had it running in Windows Store. Hopefully you can see it running in Windows Store. Is that it? Yeah. So we had it running in Windows Store. Again, with the caveat that it doesn't work until you tap away. And all of this shared exactly the same code, and it was relatively easy to do, relatively straightforward. Okay, that brings to an end this little bit on value converters. I hope it's useful to you. As I say, not everybody likes them, but I tend to use them a lot. There is a sample. Let me just see if I can run up the sample. There is a sample in the tutorials app, in the tutorials repo. And this sample in the tutorials repo, let's get out of there. The sample in the tutorials repo provides you with a lot more value conversion. And it includes value conversion that does things, not just strings and ints and bools and things, but it actually also goes across to visibility and to other things like that. So I'm not going to cover this now because it requires a couple more of those plugin things. But I will cover it in the near future. So if we run up this value converter Droid, what you'll see is we've got in this sample, which is available in GitHub, we've got value conversion, and not only do we have the value conversion for strings, hopefully it's going to run, so not only do we have this kind of reversing and all that sort of thing, but we also have it for dates, so it kind of does a date to a just now, or how many minutes ago, or how many days ago. But we also have value conversion to colors, so as I drag these things, we can change the RGB, and the colors in this block at the bottom will change as we change our sliders. So you can see that's the type of value conversion we can do. We've also got visibility value conversion, and people who do MvvM do a lot with visibility. So when I check this checkbox, the visibility on this changes. And we've also got that two-way thing. So here, this is a numeric two-way. So if whatever I type in here, the actual value in the view model is the square root of. So if I do find a nice square number, like I find 81 or something, oops, just do that. So if I find 81, then the value at the top is 9. So that's the type of thing that's available. As I say, things like the color value converter, you'll find you use quite often, or I do certainly, when I want to set, an alarm value type thing. And things like the visibility, you'll find you use a lot, because sometimes there are, spinning busy symbols and things that you want to show depending on whether or not you're loading data or something like that. Okay, so that brings to an end this particular little demo. That's available for you, and it's available, I think, on Droid, Windows Store, Windows Phone, and Touch, as well as a sample. But for now, that's the end of this little talk. I hope it was useful. I don't know what I'm covering next. It's definitely going to be tomorrow now, not today. If you've got suggestions of what you'd like me to cover, let me know. I suspect I'll move on to some plugins next. Maybe look at things like geolocation. Maybe look at things like the color and visibility. But let me know if there's stuff you want to see. That's it for now. Sorry I've waffled on and talked so long again. I hope you're getting the idea of these demos, and I hope they're useful. Okay, thanks a lot for listening. Bye.